Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and this is the LinkedIn Live program for pre-sales professionals and pre-sales leaders. And let me emphasize, these are live conversations, as you can see in the upper, I don't know if it's right or left-hand corner, because this video thing doesn't mirror, so I'm not sure which is right or left. But this is the live program, which by design is unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. And I am delighted to welcome this week's guest, Mr. Carlos Ortiz. He's head of customer engineering with Google Cloud, based in, tell me, Chicago, right? Chicago's where you call
Illinois, that's right. Chicago, we like to say.
Chicago, yeah, the Windy City.
Right.
Carlos, welcome, my friend. I'm absolutely delighted to have you. You and I spoke, gosh, 2 or 3 months ago, and the first time we talked, I knew that you had to be on this show and that we'd have a great conversation. It's a delight to have you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing terrific. Just so excited to be on this live stream with you. I can't even believe it. It's Chris White that I'm talking to.
Oh, that's way too nice.
Yeah, you've been such a big influence. Your book itself has been a big influence to our team. When I first transitioned to the leadership position in 2019, I read your book for the first time, and I really gravitated towards that first chapter, The Partner Habit, which I know we're going to talk about later, but thanks for having me. And yes, I've been with Google Cloud for about 5 years now, but really my career has been a tale of two cities. So the two halves, my first 10 years have been a systems engineer, consultant, in various startups doing rapid technology deployment. I was doing automation before automation was cool, at least I like to believe. And then my second half, I ran into the sales engineer practice and just fell in love with the role and been with sales for 15 years now, mostly as a professional IC individual contributor, but now as a sales leader. And I can't believe it that it actually brought me to this moment with you. So thank you so much for having me with the call today.
Awesome, Carlos. Well, it's a delight. It's a delight to have you. So let's talk about that journey a little bit. I'm really interested in sort of your degree and then your experience as it sounds like an engineer, maybe an automation engineer, and then how did you, quote, stumble into pre-sales?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I when you say degree, I think you mean academic wise, like college degree. I have a degree in computer science from Northeastern Illinois University. Go Golden Eagles here in Chicago. So I've always known I wanted to be a technologist. I did not know what flavor. I did not realize there was so many different flavors of being a technologist, but I knew from day one of college that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And basically my first journey was just really working with various companies as a consultant and systems engineer, and doing all sorts of different type of technology, starting from OS2 Warp, Lotus Notes back in the day, Windows NT. I was Windows NT certified, all of that good stuff. Rode the Java, EJB wave, the Web 2.0. I always gravitated to the new and latest and greatest thing because I was always curious on learning and getting on top of those trends.
Yeah.
And then one day, so before sales engineering, I was definitely on the customer side, right, of the world, where I was. It was my charter to help decide where we're going to invest our technology. So I was at part of the table, and I just noticed that before sales engineering became cool or a common term, that there would be these individuals that come in and do their demo, their dog and pony show, and then walk me through an evaluation that would go sometimes weeks, months, sometimes an entire year. And I would just be curious on what do you do again? And they would just tell me about all their adventures and all the customers that they're talking to. And I was like, I think I could do that just based on my broad experience. I just love what I call the 3 V's that role gave to those individuals. And those 3 V's are volume, variety, and victories. And I just love all their adventures seem to have those 3 things action packed in everything they do. And that's how I fell into sales engineering.
I love that. Volume, variety, and victories. All right, we're gonna unpack that. We're gonna unpack that in a minute. So, but by the way, Carlos, let's just say hello to anybody who may have joined, folks. If you're with us live, I want to invite you to say hello. We don't have eyes on you, so if you're out there, we don't know it. So I want to invite you to leave a little note to say hello. If you have any questions for myself or Carlos, please don't hesitate to ask. So Carlos, when you first made the break, if I can use that term, into pre-sales, were there some sort of, very early lessons that really changed the trajectory of your career as a sales engineer?
Yeah, I don't know about lessons, definitely a lot of lessons, but I would say hurdles, especially in my
Mm,
mindset, most particular, right? Because I came
mm,
from a role that was maybe 100% technical. All my roles until then were 100% technical. And all of a sudden, I'm thrown in this world where it's 50% technical at best. And there's this whole new 50% called sales that I had to learn in my journey. And I
mm.
really had to embrace that. And nobody grows up wanting to be a salesperson. I don't think I haven't met anybody yet that wants to be a salesperson or wants to be salesy, right? In any sort of way or fashion. You always think about the used car salesman as your sales experience, the insurance person, the life insurance, all
Yeah.
those roles. You're like, that can't be me. I hope that's not me, right? And you can get scared. At first, I was bummed away by that part of the job of, you know, coming up with persuasive messaging and trying to
Yeah.
convince people to use technology in their way. So I had to really learn that, sales for me was an acquired taste. And I think for probably
Mm,
99% of the world, it's probably an acquired taste, at least for us engineers. I really had
totally.
to get my mindset around that. And over
Mm,
time, you saw my book list turn from 100% technical to half technical and half sales. Because I really had to figure out this quickly, because there's this whole other chess game going on, during your sales cycle. Besides
mm.
you telling people about technology, there's this whole other chess game that's going on, and you better be in it, or you might not be able to be as impactful as you want to be.
Incredibly well said. And there's a couple words you use. First of all, mindset. And I you mentioned my book. I mean, I talked about this in the book. I mean, that was my story when I first got into pre-sales. Sales was below, quote, below me,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm above this, So, and I do think that we have to come to peace with sales. But by the way, as I anticipated, there's quite a few folks dialing in to say hello. Saba says hello. Michelle Duffy, she's been on
Yes.
a few shows recently. Michelle, nice to see you. I'm assuming Mike Ebers is someone you know.
Oh yeah,
Carlos.
that's right.
Roger Hahn says hello. Anthony Edwards, connected with him last week at Demo Fest. And Sam says hello as well. So, folks, really good to see y'all. If there's anybody out there, or if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So, Carlos, let's dig into this a little bit further. So you were a software engineer by trade, a computer science major, if I can use that term, out of college. You're an IT expert, and you're a technologist. You take a step into this role called pre-sales, and the first thing you come to peace with, had to come to peace with, is this idea that you're actually now in sales, right?
I'm
Which
a
for
sales guy. I'm a sales professional. Yeah.
exactly, like, how did this happen? And I love what you said. Like, nobody was, I think was born saying, I want to be a salesperson. I mean, maybe some, but not too many. So I know for me, when I came to peace with the fact that I was in sales, it really changed the way I thought about my sales counterparts. And it changed the way I thought about how to engage and interact with them. All of a sudden now they're my teammate, and we really have to build a partnership. And I know that was something that sort of struck a chord with you. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned about how best to build that partnership with our sales counterparts?
Yeah, a lot of it, is in your book. That's why the first chapter on the partner habit really resonated. Because those, number one is that empathy of understanding
Mm,
each other's mindset. I, the engineer, like you said in your presentation at Demo Fest, I, the engineer, want to be known as the expert. I want to be the technical hero, and I want to achieve that technical win for everybody. And then the rep, that mindset of, they've got numbers and targets, but you also have numbers and targets that you have to chase with them.
yeah.
And they have to go, do that grind of trying to find and develop new business. And that's not an easy task to do. And they have to face a lot of rejection, and,
Mm,
that empathy in that. And the other thing that really resonated in your presentation last week is that there's always a question mark, no matter what the salesperson says. There's always in the back of the customer's mind that question, like, question mark. Are they just trying to make their number? Or are they really giving me some meaningful business advice and tech stack advice and what have you? Or are they just trying to make their number? So I really had to kind of learn that mindset of empathizing with a rep. My sports analogy when I team up with reps is so everyone uses their sports analogies. I know there's football, the quarterback, the running back. I think you mentioned baseball. My favorite one, which I think really resonates, is tennis doubles. To me, it's more like a tennis doubles that you're playing with your rep, right? Because in tennis doubles, no one's really in command. The situation is in command. And depending on what the situation is, you're going to make your adjustments. You're going to move around. You're going to move up to the net. You can move backwards and forwards. And there's going to be all sorts of things in between that you have to work in tandem to address to hopefully get both the technical win and the deal win.
I absolutely love that, Carlos. If it's okay with your permission, I may borrow that analogy and start using it in some of my workshops. That is a great analogy, the tennis doubles. And you're right. Sometimes, and by the way, one may be better at serving than the other. One may be better at playing, like the front court. And by the way, I don't know a ton about tennis, so I'm sort of making things up a little bit as I go. But I love this idea of there's a little bit of give and take, right? There needs to be communication, and so that's a great analogy. I'm checking one off for you. I absolutely love that. The other thought that comes to mind, you started with the word empathy, and I just think that's so important. And you mentioned the Demo Fest talk that I did last week. One of the ways in which we as sales engineers can show some empathy for our sales counterparts is to understand and appreciate the pressure that they are under. We don't feel that, or at least the pressure that we feel is different, right?
Yes.
Are there any other ways in which you've discovered you can demonstrate either respect, empathy, appreciation for the sales counterparts that you've worked, or advice that you give to your team as to how they can demonstrate empathy and respect and really earn that respect as well?
Yeah, I think so. Building on top of empathy, once you kind of have that established, my next move when I work with a rep is to show them the value that they bring to an opportunity. A lot of times, in various sales situations, we pivot quickly to the technology itself, the demonstration, the presentation. Like business conversation gets maybe 5 to 10 minutes, if that, of any conversation. We pivot quickly to the technology part of it. And it's like, why did the rep just show up to the call, arrange the call, bring the donuts, and all they did, and they gave 5 minutes intro of who we are, and then we're right straight off into the presentation. So what I typically do is I challenge the reps to do their legwork to really, hey, you understand the business part aspect of it. Let's talk about the business part of it. This is my coaching to them. And let's really bring out your ideas of what they need to do in their business to up their game based on your past sales and similar customers. Like, what insights do we need to bring them? You will deliver those insights. You will deliver those business goals, the objectives, those outcomes we're going for. And you're going to do that for 50% of the call. And I'm going to do 50% of technology. And then give them the space to do that. Right? Versus just pivoting too quickly and trying to take over the conversation as a sales engineer. So when I team up with my reps, it's this tandem, this back and forth, this Penn and Teller act, so to speak, Penn and Teller tennis doubles, where the ball is moved. I love ball movement. I tell my team all the time, I love the ball movement on the calls, right? And that's what I want. I want the reps. I know why customers are getting me on the call, but why are they getting the reps on the call, right? And they should be asking for them as much as they're asking for me. So I try to champion that part from them, and that tends to build a lot of trust.
That is just so good. Again, you've given me another term that I'm going to use in my workshops is ball movement. I love the mental image that you've created with that idea. And the other thing that I hear you saying is that you are strategically helping your sales counterpart find ways to add value to the conversation.
That's
And,
right.
and I think that is so empowering. We need to be intentional with how we approach not only every deal, but really every meeting, right? And so by taking the time to really strategize with our sales counterparts and help them understand, like, this is where you can add value, demonstrate, the business value, the outcomes, et cetera, right? Then it really becomes a united front. It really becomes that two-part harmony. So, by the way, apparently I'm not alone in my thinking. Roger Hahn has I'm assuming, commented on your point, and by the way, Sam is giving you some props as well. Guys, really good to hear from you. Keep the comments and questions coming. Really good to hear from you. So let's shift. Let's take a half a step further. How did your relationship with sales and relationship with the sales teams, how did that change when you moved from IC to a management role?
Yeah. Oh, a lot. So much to get into. That's such a huge question. Maybe I'll take it at different levels. I think at first, I was armed with so many ideas of what made a great sales engineering manager. I had my thoughts. I was a professional. I at least thought, like, I think I at least know how to make sales professionals happy. I know what it takes to make the rep happy and the sales engineer happy. Let me focus on that. And the one area that I feel is missing the most in coaching, right? It's not a coach. There's no course for this. There's no coaching that's done for this. Sales reps are trained individually. So our sales engineer, you're told about each other and each other's training, but never kind of together. Rarely. I think I maybe done 3 in my 15 years courses where I was trained in tandem with my likely sales partner. So I really focused on that's where I can add the most value. And I'm going to, rather than coach the individuals, I'm going to coach the dynamic of that duo. That's what I'm going to coach for. Because for me, that's usually the root of all friction is the people interaction. And this spans towards not only the rep and the sales engineer, that's the partners that are involved, the customer that's involved. There's all sorts of people things, right? Which is a hint to what I suggest is your next book, the next habit, is the people. I think the people aspect of it. And I, as an engineer, had to really take a whole mindset of, I've mastered the binary system, the cell, the equation of the binary system. Now I've got this whole people system that I need to figure out. And I really have to adjust and coach towards the people dynamic of all sales situations.
So well said. Again, another word or another term I'm writing down, the people system. Really like the mental image that you're creating there. If I may, Carlos, I want to dig in that to a little bit further. So did you actually bring, in the case of your team, did you actually bring your sales engineers and sales reps together to do either coaching sessions or sort of workshop sessions with AEs and SEs together, either as a team or individual AE and SE to work on some specific things?
Yeah, actually, we did something a little bit different. We do a little of everything. All those call outs, we have the big training sessions, and we have sort of like the group breakouts of sales reps and sales engineers. But I took it a step further, right? Typically weekly, we check in with our teams. And what we tell our teams is, hey, you run your business as if you're the franchise owner of that. You are a franchisee. You're a board member of my team, but you two together run this franchise of a book of business. So therefore, you rep is CEO, and you CE or you sales engineer is the CTO CIO, right? And therefore, you need to then run that business together. And I would coach that daily. This is not something you can coach quarterly, right? Once a quarter, once a month. This is something you do weekly.
I mean, you were dropping so many good ideas, Carlos. I mean, I love this notion of the franchise owner. It's interesting. One of the best pieces of advice I got in my career, and it was pretty well into my career. In fact, I was changing jobs, and the lady I was reporting to, she said, "Look, Chris, we are all the CEOs of our own career." And she said, you've got to make executive decisions, and this notion of the franchise owner sort of plays into that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you are responsible for your success and you need to think like a business owner. And what I love about the notion of the franchise model is, we're going to give you everything you need to be successful, right? And you've got, there's certain rules, certain things you got to follow, but this, this idea that, that you still have some room to operate your own business here. I just absolutely love that. By the way, I got to make a shout out to my friend Matt Elsom. Matt is based in Europe, and he's saying, right at Chris, the 6 people issues in technical selling. Matt, I may just take you up on that challenge. That's a great idea, Matt. It's always good to see you. And the SE is the CEO and the AE is the CEO's EA. I love that.
Wait a second.
Well said, Matt.
Yeah.
So let's sort of take this a half a step further. In working with your AEs and your SEs, and I'm sure from time to time you run into maybe some friction or some challenges or some disagreements. How do you typically handle that, or what advice do you give, maybe to other managers when some of the folks on their team are struggling to cooperate, communicate, et cetera, with their sales counterparts?
Yes, and I think that's probably number one, especially for the engineers. Don't like to be liked. Or yeah, I would think even salespeople don't like to be. Nobody likes to be liked at all. And I think the reality check is that no matter what you do, there might be some people you just can't connect with, you can't pair with, right? But that can't be the showstopper to you winning the business and serving the customer well. That can't be the showstopper. So as long as you each fundamentally understand that tennis doubles game, you can really get through that opportunity and still achieve technical success, the technical win, customers, all that good stuff, and still kind of pair for that moment in time and be successful. And the more you understand the rules of the road, the tennis etiquette of doubles and the natural position, the more you can pick up on that, do your thing, right? And then move on and maybe get a next pairing as you go forward. I've been playing doubles for maybe about 10 years. I would say I had a regular partner, maybe 3 or 4 years of that. The rest of the time, I was always playing with somebody new. And I can quickly identify other people that could not play or singles players. I could identify the singles players within 5 minutes based on how they move on the court, where they like to serve and everything. Oh, that's a singles player. That means I'm going to have to cover these opening gaps, right? In 5 minutes, I can assess that when I'm working with somebody. So I make that same assessment. I know what the patterns are. I know what singles players like to do. Or I play with somebody that I know have been playing doubles for years, and they're standing exact. I don't have to say a word. They just know exactly where to be. Therefore, I got to be on my toes and making sure I need to know where I need to be, because this person is going to be in the right position at the right time. So I have to keep up with them, right? So I kind of use that analogy in my mind to really help me adjust to all the different sales reps that I need to do in a moment's time.
Carlos, I have to tell you, I am so inspired by this analogy. The more you talk about it, I mean, Matt just challenged me to write the 6 people issues. I may be challenging you to write why selling software is like playing doubles tennis or something, because this is such a good analogy, right? And let's double click on a few things you just said. First of all, this idea that in any given match you may be playing with someone that you've played with before, and you know one another's tendencies and right, whereas you may be playing with someone that you haven't played before, right? And so you need to spend the first 5 minutes trying to sort of assess, are they a natural doubles tennis player, or are they more of a natural singles tennis player? And if it's the latter, if they're a singles player, right, that means that there may be some more things that you need to do to fill some gaps than you're used. But if they're and you use the term tennis etiquette and rules of the road, right? There's AESE etiquette, right? There's sales team etiquette that, and we need to quickly determine, do they understand the etiquette or not, right? And if not, maybe I need to do a little more. We still got to serve the customer, right? We still have to win the
match. Yeah, that's right.
So I absolutely love this. This is, and one of the things you also said is this notion that it has to be the coaching and the communication, the collaboration has to be consistent, right? We can't, what the way I heard what you said was, look, we can't sort of do this once, right? Sort of
Right.
set this up once and just expect like magically things are going to work out okay. Is that, am I hearing that correctly?
Right. It's got to be, every day of the week. It's got to be a Monday through Friday type of thing that you do in your coaching. And I do a lot of ride-alongs personally. And when I'm in those
Mm,
calls, when the sales meetings, and a situation happens, I can choose as a manager, and this might be a different topic. How do you impact as a manager, right, in this coaching?
yeah.
But I could choose to chime in a situation, but typically I'll have my sales engineer and my rep on a chat or some other line of communication. And I'm saying, rep, you say this right now. Sales engineer, you say this right now, right? And I kind of like in flight, in play type of coaching while it happens in real time. And I'm
Mm,
teaching them how to construct that point,
it's
that
awesome.
tennis point. I'm doing point construction. I do that a couple of times
Mm.
and they're off to the races once they learn kind of what that natural point construction is in order to win that particular meeting.
Mm. I'm writing down. You're filling up a page of notes for me, by the way. I'm just
Hopefully
telling
the
you.
people, yeah,
Point construction is
yeah,
is another good one. By the way, a few people chiming in that I just want to recognize. Mariano says, I dislike doubles players that make me run all over the court and get every single ball. It happens way too often. So
yeah. That's
perfect
the
example.
customer. That's what the
Yeah,
customer's doing to you, right? They're lobbing the ball over and keeping the ball deep, trying to keep you guys off that top of that net, right? So you have to come up with those in-game strategies to both get at the net in unison. So that's why this analogy kind of keeps
it's
carrying through.
perfect.
Where
Well,
you
by the way, I'm not alone. Michelle Duffy says I'm new to the SE world, and this doubles analogy is very helpful. So you've definitely taken this program by storm with that analogy. So let's and by the way, folks, I welcome you to continue. Really good to hear from everybody. If you have any other thoughts, please share. Any questions for Carlos or myself, please ask. So let's double click on something you said earlier. You call it the 3 V's of happiness for sales engineers. And if I got them right, I think they're volume, variety, and
agree.
victories.
That's
So
right.
let's, and I, by the way, I mean, me, I like frameworks, and I like,
Yeah.
I like alliteration. So you're just, singing my tune. Let's talk about that first one. What do you mean by volume when you say volume?
Yeah. I just think just the amount of projects and opportunities that you're going to be involved with. There's just so
Yeah.
much learning. I'm one of those kind of like continuous learner types. And I just want to add volume. I don't want I don't like single threaded learning so much. I want a lot of volume that I can just immerse myself into. So when I talk about that, it's just I want a fresh at bat, a new at bat almost every single day, rather than
Mm,
just kind of one prolongated type of opportunity. I want different. I always seem to do better in that world where I have a lot of variety of, or we'll get into the other V, but a lot of just volume of different opportunities
yeah.
versus just being single threaded on a particular project. Nothing wrong with that. I know some people that are more of that slant, and maybe sales is not for them. Maybe they should go into software engineering or some other flavor of technology.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really good point. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I got into pre-sales myself is that I was 15 years into a very successful IT consulting profession, doing exactly what I thought I wanted to be doing, making frankly more money than I thought I'd ever make, and I
Right.
was miserable, right? So to your point, and I thought there was something wrong with me, right? Like I'm exactly where I thought I wanted to be, and yet I'm not happy, right? So I love this idea of volume, and it's Carlos, tell me if this resonates and relates to the way you think about it. I always used to say when I was out in the field, I would tell, well, if I was thinking about changing jobs, I'd be talking maybe to a new employer. I'd say there's two biggies. Number one, pay me well. And number two, don't let me get bored.
Yes.
If I have those two things,
Yes.
I'm pretty good. Does
Yeah.
that resonate with you?
That resonates. That's another thing I coined last year. There's this focus on OTE, on target earnings, right?
Yeah, OTE. Yeah.
I want to elevate that. OTF, on target fulfillment, right? Your comp structure is just one part of your overall fulfillment. That's just one part of it. Maybe it's 50, 60%. It's going to depend on the person of what that portion makes up. But really, it's your fulfillment. I want to feel fulfilled every single day in my job. Really, that's the goal, because you have to work Monday through Friday, that tough sales grind with your coworkers, with your customers, and what have you. Why wait till the end of the year in your sales bonus to be happy? Why not do it Monday through Friday and feel fulfilled every single day? Therefore, that fulfillment then speaks towards besides sales, what are my other passions, my technical passions? I want to be involved in my favorite technology as much as possible. I want to be involved in variety of technology of opportunities, right? I just want that fulfillment to come fast and furious. So OTF is the new term for you, Chris.
Again, you're loading me up with new terms. I mean, I absolutely love that. And honestly, for pre-sales leaders in particular right now, this is such an important point, right? Yeah. Why? We're all well familiar now with this notion of the Great Resignation.
Yes.
Pre-sales professionals are harder than ever before to find. There's literally a turf war for talent. And this, I think, embracing this idea of OTF, on target fulfillment, if we can seek to achieve that for all of our people as leaders, what are the chances we're going to retain our talent, right? So I really, really love that notion, OTF, not OTE. But by the way, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. I think it's Nadine, and if I'm not, you can correct me. Would love to get a hold of the page of notes that you're taking. I will be sure to, after the fact. I'll repost this conversation, and I'll put the notes. I'll put all the new terms that Carlos has unloaded on us today in that post. All right, so that's volume. That's the first V. The second V is variety. Do you care to, and obviously to a certain degree it speaks for itself, but do you care to elaborate a little bit on that one?
Yeah, and then Chris, there's different flavors of sales engineering. Even within the sales engineer, there's different flavors of that. Some people are super technical in particular set of products. Some people are super proficient in a domain, maybe retail, insurance, banking industry, right? Yeah. And maybe they'll gravitate to one of those two things. As a sales engineer, maybe that's what your thing. You just want to perfect your craft in either technology-wise or domain-wise. Yeah. But then there's the third category for me, which is the favorite, is the generalist. There's that generalist sales engineer. Most startups and mid-market companies are filled with these generalists that kind of know the landscape of all sorts of, they don't go deep in any sort of area in domain and technology and anything. They're kind of like a jack of all trades, but master of none types, right? Yeah. That is me. My definition, I told you this before, of a sales engineer is a technologist who does not know what they want to be when they grow up, but is super good at mapping technology to business outcomes. A technologist that does not know what they want to be when they grow up. And that's me. And that says everything variety. And for me, I've just been this career-long generalist. Every time I tried to specialize, I quickly get that angst on, there's this new shiny new technology that's over there. I got to go check that out because my curiosity just kind of pulls me, right? So that's why I speak. Not everyone's like that. Some we have from sales engineer brothers and sisters that just love being great at one domain or at one technology, but not me. So that's why the variety speaks to me.
Well, and you said a couple of, I think, really key points there. First and foremost, to me, the variety also comes in the sort of in the context of different customers, right? I mean, to me, one of the things that I love about it is that we have the opportunity. No day is the same, right? No 2 days are the same, right? Because it's different individuals, it's different customers, it's different scenarios, it's different problems, etc. And then to your point, there's a variety of roles in the pre-sales world, right? To your point, you can be a specialist, right? You can be a technologist in a specific technical area. You can be a domain expert, right? Maybe you're a manufacturing expert, or I mean, I was coaching somebody, and he comes from a mental health. He has a background in mental health. He was a mental health professional, and was looking to break into pre-sales. And I said, well, there must be companies out there that sell software to mental health professionals. You would be perfectly qualified for a role like that, right? And I love what you said about the generalist. I too, I mean, my expertise was enterprise architecture, but I think I thought of myself more as, because I would, if I had to have a data conversation, we can have a data conversation. Yes. If we need to have a process analysis conversation, let's have a process analysis conversation, right? If we're talking, IT architecture, let's have that conversation, right? So I. And the other thing, it's interesting. Somebody posted this, and I can't remember who it was, but it's one of the other folks that puts a lot of stuff out on LinkedIn. He said something to the effect of, there will be one kind of sales engineer when there's one kind of customer.
Yeah, good luck.
Right?
Yes.
Good luck with that. So, and I think the interesting thing is that the unique. I mean, there's some fundamental, there's some common fundamental skills, right? I believe it's a three-legged stool: technical skills, people skills, which I know we're going to talk about, and sales skills. But there's different ingredients and different portions of those ingredients, I think, in every one of us, right? And to me, that's what makes it so unique. So absolutely love that. And I love the idea, a sales engineer is a technologist who doesn't know what they want to do when they grow up. So I'm happy to say that I finally think I found I figured out what I want to do when I grow up. It took me over 50 years, but doing things like this is finally what I think I want to do. All right, so that's volume and variety, two of which you had me at hello, as they say, with those. Yeah. The final I just absolutely love is victory. Let's talk about victory.
Yes, victory. So this is where I think when the light bulb turns on, that sales might be fun. Sales engineer might be fun. The whole being a sales professional is not as bad as the stigma. The victory, right? When you finally close that deal, and even more so, you close the deal, but you see the customer a year later successful on your technology. You see them on stage or on a blog or on a podcast presenting their particular solution that they're bringing out to the world. You see them get promoted into various positions, and you helped influence their career and their company success in their space. And you feel that sense of victory. So it's not just closing the deal, but just like all of that, of what that deal, that's the beginning of this kind of wheel of success that you're creating for both your customer, your coworkers, and your partner. And that's all this shared victory, that win for everybody, right? And then once you feel that once, you are hooked. At least I was just hooked when that first time happened. I was like, oh, this is great. And it made the whole year long a grind and trying to break open doors and all that totally worth all of that, right? To see that success that it brings your coworkers, your partner in crime, the AE, your customers, their career projection, their company projection, all that good stuff. So that's what I mean by victories. That's kind of like a shared euphoria that everyone gets to achieve.
I mean, it's just so true. And it really is one of the blessings of being a sales engineer. It's one of the blessings of being part of a sales team is closing those deals, having those victories. But to your point, particularly when, and I might even go to as far as to say only when we know that it's a legitimate solution, it's the right solution for the customer, for what they are trying to achieve. We are actually helping them solve a problem that they've been struggling with for a long time, and what it does to the individuals that we're working with, right? You mentioned either they get promoted or they're standing up at next year's user conference talking about the success that they've had, right? Or they're on a podcast or what have you. To me, look, I caught the same bug, right? You said you sort of caught that bug. I know for me, I caught that bug. There's nothing like going in and either giving the demonstration or running the evaluation that not only leads to the victory, but changes people's lives in the process. And look, at the end of the day, one of my favorite sayings, we are all most fulfilled when serving other people. And I don't know, there's very few roles, I think, in software that give us the opportunity to really be on the front line of serving other people. Does that resonate, Carlos?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, that really at the core of it is helping others grow, helping others get better in their business, in their personal goals. When I connect with my customers, I also connect at the individual level, not just like the big opportunity. And there are customers I've had that I've known for years that I haven't even sold anything for years, for 20 years, that I still maintain strong relationships on. They're cheering me on my career progression. I'm cheering them on. I'm like, wow, you got that VP of cloud position. Congratulations to you. Remember 15 years ago and you said cloud wasn't a thing? And I convinced you. I'm so glad I helped convince you that cloud was a thing, right?
Hey, I remember when AOL came out, and I was like, this internet thing. I mean, what are you kidding me? Nobody's going to go online. I mean, who's going to go online to look for stuff?
And here are those are the thought leaders now. The customers I used to work from the very beginning are now the thought leaders of our space, and I'm so proud of them and proud of their work. And like, I had 1% to do with that person's career. Right.
Well, and it's actually it inspires me to share an example of that is really special to me, and that is, and I know you've read the book. The gentleman who wrote the foreword of my book is a gentleman named Steve Brown. He was my customer at CoreLogic, and I worked with him for years. And he was I think he was a VP of engineering, something like that. And after 4 or 5 years working together, he had an opportunity to become a senior sales engineer with one of the companies another company that he had been working with. And so he launched into that, in large part because of the relationship that he and I built. And, he actually he wrote the foreword of my book, and he and I are still close today. So to your point, and by the way, I mean, he was a big part of my growth too. I mean, that was one of those relationships where I grew as as a result of that business relationship and really personal, I mean, we became friends, right? But at the end of the day, it started out, I was the pre-sales guy, right, working with him as a VP of engineering. And so these can be really special relationships, and it's actually a perfect segue into the 3 P's the 3 P words that you suggested I consider for habit number 7. But before we get there, I do need to make a shout out to my good friend Kerry Sokolsky. And he wrote a lot. What is he saying here? Critical of broad organization. Yes. When SEs are depreciated. Couldn't have said it better myself, Kerry. The SEs need to be celebrated the way AEs are when we close the deals. And if they're not, the AEs need to be giving credit to the SEs that help them cross the finish line. So very good point, Kerry. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah.
Nice to have you on. By the way, we've got about 15 minutes tops. I am gonna be respectful of your time and let you go at the top of the hour. But if I can indulge you just for a few minutes, folks, if you have any other comments or questions, I invite you to share. So Carlos and I were chatting, and he's like, "Well, Chris, have you ever considered, what the next habit's going to be?" And I said, "I don't know. What's on your mind?" And so, sticking with the alliteration, which is so important, I've got it listed here. You said passion, people, or pursuit? So why don't we take those? Why don't we take those in those order? Let's talk passion. Make the case for passion being habit number 7.
Okay, I already have my favorite, but I can make a case for all of them. Passion, right? That's the one thing I feel like, when you do embrace as a sales engineer, you can over embrace the sales side of the role at times and eventually, lose touch of the original passion you had for technology.
Mm.
And a lot of times when I hire people, I really try to sense of have they really hold on to their passion of why they became a technologist in the first place. Like how, what are they learning when no one's looking? Like, are they Sunday morning reading some new thing about technology that maybe they'll get into someday, or just reading it for fun? And therefore, that passion for them being a technologist, right? Their reach, that curiosity for new and growing technologies is there. And nowadays, a lot of times when I interact with sales engineer, I feel like that's the part of it that they need to bring out more in their presentation, more in their meetings, is their passion for the technology that they're presenting. Like really own that passion. And if you're not passionate about that technology, you should probably switch, get into more variety, look for different opportunities, because when you're speaking from that place of, I love this technology, like Kubernetes, for example. I don't know if Chris, if you heard of Kubernetes, this container technology.
I know enough. I know enough about Kubernetes to know that I don't know anything about Kubernetes. Let's just put it that way.
That's my favorite technology, probably in cloud native technology. I can go all day. I can nerd out on Kubernetes as much as I can nerd out on tennis. And I know all the Kubernetes celebrities as much as I know all the sales engineer celebrities such as yourself. I can nerd out on that topic all day as a fanboy, or as a fangirl, right? So that's where that passion comes in. I think it just helps elevate everything you do every day.
You've made a pretty good argument for passion. I love this notion that we can over embrace our role in sales. And I love that line. What are they learning when no one's looking? What are we doing when no one's looking? That's a really good point. And you're right. If you've lost your passion, and I think passion can come in a number of different ways, right? Certainly passion for technology, there's a place for that. I know for me, it got to the point where I couldn't keep up with the technology necessarily, but I still had a passion for helping people. I still had a passion for solving problems, right? I still, now I have a passion for making every time I speak with a group to make that 30, 60, 90 minutes, 3 hours, whatever is the best, 3 hours of their day, right? So no matter what it is, if you don't have the passion for what you're doing, I agree with you. You're in the wrong role, right? Passion is infectious. And by the way, the absence of passion is just painfully obvious. Yes. So
they're equally contagious.
Yeah.
They're equally.
Yeah. Very well said. All right, that was number 1. So that has it. That you're giving me. You've made a strong case. I think I know what your favorite is, but what's your argument, or what's your position for people?
The people, and we probably touched a lot on people in every question and answer in this whole conversation, but the people aspect to me is really where I think it really needs to be a habit in our excellence, not only for sales engineers, but reps at all. But imagine at the core of what we do is consensus building. It's consensus building. And therefore you need to develop all the people skills in the world to build that consensus. I don't care how good you are at spinning up, a Kubernetes cluster. That is probably not going to help you to spin up the technical win, right? Or the deal proposal, or trying to reduce the friction that happens, the natural friction that happens between your sales counterparts and the customers, and the high stakes pressure. You really need to be sensitive to all that. And you started your talk about AE/SE partnerships with empathy, and that skill of empathy and what it really means, right? But spell that out. When, like I talk about victory, what does a win really mean? Does it mean that you make your numbers, or does it really mean that you've changed people's careers, and because of you, they're going to get that promotion? that reward. They're going to keep their jobs secure. A lot of these companies are just trying to keep the lights on. They're trying to acquire new customers, right? So it's this domino effect that you create that happens all after that deal happens, right? That people effect. And if you just underappreciate developing that skill needs as much work as my skill is to stay fresh on Kubernetes, that people skill. That's why you'll see my reading list is a mile long just on me trying to be a better coworker, trying to be a better a coworker. So I really think people needs to be a habit, Chris.
Yeah, yeah. Again, you've made a good argument. By the way, I'm sure our good friends at Consensus who hosted Demo Fest last week, I'm sure they're very happy to hear that. Hear you say that our primary role is consensus building. Which by the way, I completely agree. You know, it's interesting, Carlos. I don't know if you're familiar. I do some work with a company called Aslan Training and Development, and one of the programs that we run is other-centered selling. And the best way to think of other-centered selling is it's the opposite of self-centered selling. And in hearing you talk about this notion of, you know, people, it's all about people. That's really the notion of other-centered. It's all about making other people the priority, whether it's our sales colleagues, our own colleagues, our people, our customers, etc. So another very strong case. All right, so the third was pursuit, and it's interesting. Go ahead. You had something to say.
No. Go. Finish your thing. I was trying to recall where I meant by pursuit, and I just remembered it. Go ahead.
Well, so and you know, it's interesting because I've been kicking this around too. Because to be fair, I have thought that I think, and I've had a few people tell me, Chris, like your book is so good, like you got me up to the demo, but I now need I need more, you know, help with POCs and POVs, and so to me, pursuit or prove, right? So you know, because we talk about proof of concept, proof of value. So my guess is you probably meant something around the, you know, sort of the evaluation process. Is that sort of what you were thinking around pursuit?
That pursuit, everything in between. Because I do think another thing I feel like that's happening is that we over-index on the demo or the big presentation or the big proposal pitch to the C-level. But wait a second, there are months of legwork, so many dozens and dozens, several meetings and workshops and lunches and one-on-ones and all that sausage making it takes to make that one happen. We make it look like a Hollywood movie, like all of a sudden, you know, like a TV show where we're given a customer's challenges, and in one weekend we kind of put our pitch together and pitch it and do the win. Chris, I haven't been part of any of I haven't been lucky on any of that. Usually
it doesn't work that way.
Kind of like weeks to month long, and there's a lot of sausage making. You know, for me, sales, you know, you got presentation and demo. They're only one chapter. They're literally just one chapter of the sales book, so to speak. And we over-index and we hire against demos and presentations, and we hire against, you know, pitching. Right? When you hire your reps, you really how good are they pitching? When you hire your sales engineer, how good are they, you know, with their demonstration? But you miss out on all the stuff that happens in all the sales stages in between, that sausage making that happens. How good are they at one-on-one conversation? How are they good at giving feedback, receiving feedback? You know, all that in between. So there's a lot of sausage making in pursuit that I feel like presentation, demo, proposal are like less than 10% of what goes on in a sales engagement.
That's really good. And you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all the things. You know, I've said this for years. I mean, it's all the things that happen before the meetings, leading up to the meetings, right? And the things that happen after the big meetings. That's what ultimately gets us across the finish line, right? It's not, and you're right. We tend to make I love this term you're using, over-index. We over-index the big meeting, and we forget that, you know, look, it's all the little tasks and engagements and activities and conversations that build up to a whole. In fact, I mean, one of the things that I started saying in some of my workshops is you want to win more deals, win more meetings. Because every meeting counts. Like, we should be winning every single meeting, right? And what do I mean by win the meeting? Let's make sure that we understand the objective. We make them the priority in the conversation. We see to it that we help them achieve their objective in every single meeting. Because every time one of our prospects and customers comes to a meeting, they have an agenda and they have an objective for the meeting, as do we, of course, right? But we need to prioritize them. So I have to say, I absolutely love that as well. Carlos, you have been just unbelievably gracious with your time. You have been just a volcano flow of ideas.
I got more.
I know you do. I'm going to have to invite you back. I only paid you for an hour, so I think I'm about to run out of time. Final piece of advice. This is tech sales advice. Final piece of advice from you before we put a bow on today's conversation.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Yeah, it's wide open.
Yeah, I think my final piece of advice is, I hate to plug your book. If you really want to be successful in sales, as a sales engineer, your partnership with that rep is important. And I think that building that relationship of, equal trust, equal ownership and opportunity, I think is number one. All the other habits will come along as they will. But if you're not mindfully working on that partnership, not only with the rep you're working with, but expect to change reps and change customers almost every year. It's happening at that pace. So you've got to be that context switcher, and you've got to be able to read and respond to those patterns quickly on that doubles tennis court, right? You've got to be able to recognize the situation, make the adjustments, do enough to get that win, right? And then play for another day.
I really, really, really love that analogy. That I'm gonna. In fact, I may start doing some research on doubles tennis just to better understand that game. I'm not. I can hit a ball, but not exactly my strong suit. But I'm gonna have to do
my present to tell the world. When I first interviewed with Google, I actually used a presentation on tennis. Maybe I'll post it online. My personal presentation. They said, you must do a technical presentation and a personal presentation. And it was actually on playing doubles tennis and the strategies there and how it related to sales motions.
Wow. Okay. I'm dying to see that.
That got me the job. I think that got me the job. I'm not sure.
I am dying to see that now. So yes, I'm gonna have you back. Maybe I'll bring you back and you could just do that. And we'll make that the entire show. Carlos, thank you so much, sir. It has been an absolute pleasure and delight. I literally have 2 pages of notes. For those of you who joined us live, Michelle and so many of you others, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, I want to encourage you to follow hashtag tech sales advice so you can be notified whenever we go live like this. And of course, I invite you to go to demodoctor.com to check out the online training options, and also techsalesadvisors.com. And, as Carlos has been discussing, we actually run workshops for AEs and SEs together to help them develop those skills together. So with that, and by the way, Saba, Stephanie tuning in, thank you so much, folks. Carlos, will you come back and join me for another conversation sometime?
Yeah.
Is that something you'd be willing to do?
Squeeze me in. We can even invite other people, as far as what your circle goes. Love to talk about that. I could talk sales fan theory all day with you, Chris.
Awesome. Well, you have been an absolute delight, sir, and it's been a great deal of fun. Hang around just for a minute, Carlos, because I'm going to give you your parting gift. To everyone else, we're going to say farewell. We'll see you next week. Thanks all.